What if the world's trash could flip the script on global power? Imagine a world where what is discarded, ignored, or even despised becomes the very foundation of change. A world where waste is not a curse, but a catalyst for a new era of independence and dignity. This isn't just a hypothetical, it's the lived reality unfolding right now in Burkina Faso, a nation that is quietly rewriting the rules of development, sovereignty, and innovation. Picture a dirt road, battered by decades of monsoons and relentless African heat, its surface long since surrendered to potholes and mud. Now, imagine that same road transformed, its foundation built not from imported asphalt or expensive cement, but from hundreds of thousands of recycled tires. In Burkina Faso, engineers and laborers are collecting what most nations call useless junk and turning it into roads tougher than concrete, more resilient than tradition could ever promise. Each stretch of pavement is a living testament, not to foreign charity or outside expertise, but to local brilliance, determination, and the raw will to thrive. At the center of this revolution stands Ibrahim Traore, a leader whose vision is as bold as it is pragmatic. He asked a question that most global development experts never dared to entertain. What if Africa's true path forward is forged by its own hands, using its own ingenuity, and not by relying on the conditional generosity of foreign aid agencies or the prescriptions of outside consultants? While the West spends trillions, yes, trillions, on wars, bailouts, and bandages for broken systems, the people of Burkina Faso are building, inventing, and shaping a new kind of progress, one recycled tire at a time. This is not Silicon Valley. There are no venture capitalists in tailored suits, no gleaming glass towers, no armies of coders. Instead, this is a revolution born of necessity, rising from places the world ignores and writes off. It is proof that real innovation is not about having more, but about doing more with whatever you have, especially when no one expects it. In fact, some of the world's most important inventions have emerged from scarcity, not abundance. Think of the Indian Jugaad, ingenious workarounds created by resourceful people with almost nothing. Or remember how, during the Second World War, British and American engineers invented radar and code-breaking machines in makeshift labs, transforming the course of history. Burkina Faso stands in this proud lineage, making the impossible possible, armed with little more than determination and the cast-offs of a disposable world. If you still believe Africa's story is written somewhere else, in boardrooms in London, in ministries in Paris, or in think tanks in Washington, you are missing the real upheaval. The stakes go far beyond roads or rubber. This is about who owns power, who claims dignity, and who gets to define the future. For centuries, the narrative has been that Africa waits while others act, that it receives while others give, that it follows while others lead. But what happens when that script is flipped entirely? What happens when the continent's so-called weakness, its abundance of waste, becomes the cornerstone of a new sovereign strength? But how did this unlikely transformation begin? And what does it mean for the rest of the continent? Indeed, for the world? To answer that, we have to look at the forces that shaped Burkina Faso's current crisis and the nearly miraculous response that followed. Then, a new figure stepped forward, President Ibrahim Traore. Unlike his predecessors, he refused to let outsiders script his country's destiny. Where others saw refuse, he saw untapped wealth. He asked a radical question. Why must progress come from abroad? What if the true answers were hidden here, on Burkina-based soil, in the hands and minds of people too often overlooked? For generations, outside experts, consultants, and donor agencies told the people of Burkina Faso that real progress would be impossible without foreign intervention. You need our loans, our machines, our oversight, they declared, as villages waited for promises that never arrived. International development plans, often drafted in distant capitals, failed to account for local realities or needs. Money flowed in, then trickled away, often leaving little more than unfinished projects and bitter disappointment. Poverty deepened, hope faded. The cycle seemed endless. In a cramped, sun-baked office in Ouagadougou, the capital, change sparked. Traore called together a group of local engineers. Among them was Amadou, a young innovator whose education had been entirely local. No foreign degrees, no elite networks. Amadou had a bold idea. Old tires, which for years had clogged rivers and littered fields, could be transformed into roads. Not just any roads, but roads more durable and resilient than those built from imported supplies. The room crackled with doubt. Could garbage really pave the way to the future? Would a road built from trash withstand the brutal cycles of rain and sun? The concept seemed preposterous to some, even dangerous. But necessity is the mother of invention. Instead of begging for international loans or foreign contractors, Traore rallied local hands. Teams of workers scoured towns and countryside for discarded tires, gathering what others saw as environmental hazards and turning them into the raw materials of a new infrastructure. But forging roads from ruin was just the starting line. As once isolated villages were linked by sturdy, tire-based highways, new threats and fresh possibilities loomed on the horizon. The stakes could not have been higher. If these grassroots solutions failed, the country risked deeper dependence, ridicule, and continued hardship. But if they succeeded, millions might finally seize dignity and command over their own future. The world would have to rethink who defines development, who gets to lead, and what is truly possible when a nation takes control of its destiny. Now, as the first roads open, the world is watching. And not everyone is cheering for Burkina Faso independence. The next challenge will test whether this revolution can survive not just local doubts, but global resistance from those with much to lose. Success, as history shows, always draws adversaries. As President Ibrahim Traore's vision begins to reshape the nation, powerful interests far beyond its borders suddenly feel threatened. Foreign banks and international agencies, long accustomed to steering the course of development, watch as their influence wanes. Burkina Faso is turning inward, crafting its own future from its own resources, its own waste, and its own ingenuity. Yet, change on this scale never goes unchallenged. Overseas headlines erupt with warnings about chaos and danger. Major Western media outlets run stories predicting disaster, questioning the safety and viability of these bold, tire-based roads. The underlying message is unmistakable. Too much independence, they warn, could lead to catastrophe, instability, even collapse. On the ground, resistance is subtler but more insidious. Critical shipments of equipment are mysteriously delayed at distant ports. Supplies arrive late or not at all. Some tools are broken or missing, as if by accident. International partners, once eager, now urge caution, pressuring Burkina Faso to reconsider, to slow down, to return to the old ways of dependency. Inside the country, uncertainty creeps in. Citizens, exposed to foreign-funded news, begin to voice doubts. Can a nation truly build its future from what others discard? Is this just a passing dream, destined to crumble under its own weight? The ghosts of failed projects from the past haunt the present, feeding skepticism and hesitation. But on the work sites, resolve hardens. Local workers, fueled by Traore's unwavering determination, refuse to yield. Every tire laid into the foundation is an act of rebellion. Each newly paved mile is a message to the world. We will not retreat. We will not be defined by what others think is possible or impossible. Outside observers, once dismissive, start to pay attention. Across Africa, young engineers and leaders begin to wonder, could this path be theirs as well? The stakes soar. If Burkina Faso fails, it risks ridicule and a return to dependence. But if it succeeds, it could ignite a movement powerful enough to transform the continent's fate. For every act of sabotage, every seed of doubt planted by outside interests, Burkina Faso responds with bolder ambition. The world is watching now. The coming days will reveal whether this revolution can survive the storm it has summoned, whether local ingenuity can withstand global opposition. The pressure mounts, but so does the determination. As hostile forces close in, Traore and his people prepare for their greatest test yet. To many, it feels like a new kind of war, not of armies, but of ideas, of willpower, of who gets to decide the future. What happens when the courage of a single nation ignites an entire continent? Across Africa, crowds surge into city centers, their voices raised in demand for the same tire roads now weaving through Burkina Faso. Clips of villagers strolling on sturdy, recycled highways sweep across social media, forcing global experts to concede, however reluctantly, the brilliance of turning waste into enduring infrastructure. But this wave is not just about roads anymore. The Burkina Faso innovators, emboldened by their triumph, reach further. Water canals lined with tire bricks and recycled plastic promise relief from drought and forgotten hamlets. Solar panels glitter atop schools and clinics, and the first blueprints for a solar-powered smart city, planned and built by local minds, affordable and green, are unveiled to wild applause. Neighboring nations cannot look away. Delegations from Senegal, Ghana, and even faraway Ethiopia arrive, eager to learn and share in the vision. They sign agreements with Burkina Faso, forging alliances to spread technology and co-create new models of prosperity. For the first time in generations, a true wave of Pan-African solidarity sweeps the continent, echoing the spirit of the independence movements of the 20th century, but grounded in the concrete realities of the 21st. Yet no wave rises without meeting resistance. In distant capitals, Paris, London, Brussels, Washington, powerful governments and financial titans huddle in shadowy rooms, unsettled by what they see as an existential threat to their influence. They devise schemes to keep Africa bound by old debts, launching smear campaigns, pressuring banks, and sowing doubt to slow the grassroots revolution. They fear not just the loss of economic control, but the loss of a narrative that has kept Africa in a subservient position for centuries. But something irreversible is happening inside Burkina Faso. Everyday people walk roads that were once muddy, impassable scars, now transformed into the living arteries of a new economy. Farmers, teachers, and young dreamers feel a spark, a surge of dignity, agency, and fierce pride in what their own hands have built. The psychological chains of dependency begin to snap link by link. This transformation is reminiscent of other global examples. After the Marshall Plan, Europe rebuilt from its own ashes. After the Green Revolution, Asia fed itself. Now it is Africa's turn. The world's old order quakes. For the first time, Africa is not waiting for permission. It is writing its own terms, risking backlash and possible isolation for the chance at real sovereignty. The stakes have never been higher. Will the continent seize this moment and shape its future? Or will the old powers succeed in smothering the revolution before it truly takes hold? But revolutions are fragile things. The next days will test not just the roads, but the resolve of a people daring to dream. The echoes of history are loud. When South Korea transformed itself from war-torn poverty to industrial giant, it did so against the odds and the doubts of many. When Brazil's favelas started turning their own trash into usable goods, the world scoffed until the results spoke for themselves. Burkina Faso stands at the same precipice. How do you build freedom? Tire by tire, drop by drop, spark by spark. Burkina Faso's journey reveals that real independence is not imported. It is crafted by the hands, hearts, and minds of ordinary citizens. By transforming abandoned tires into roads, they slashed costs, some estimates say by over half compared to traditional materials, and unleashed a wave of local jobs. Each tire collected, each road built, became a building block of economic strength, anchoring wealth within the community instead of letting it seep away. At the heart of this revolution stands leadership that refuses to accept limits set by others. President Ibrahim Traore and his team asked, what if everything we need is already here? That question shattered the old rules. It turned "you cannot" into "we will," and replaced dependency with determination. Courage, not compliance, opened the gates to self-reliance. Yet this is more than clever solutions. It is resistance in action. When outside forces tried to disrupt their progress, the people of Burkina Faso stood firm, shoulder to shoulder. They became a living shield, proving that unity is the first line of defense against interference. This was not empty bravado. It was a community seizing its right to chart its own future, no matter who tried to block the path. Think of Vietnam's Doi Moi reforms, when citizens and leaders together decided to open a new chapter, blending innovation with tradition. Or recall the cooperative movements of Mondragon in Spain, where local ownership became the engine of resilience and pride. But the lesson runs deeper still. Enduring change stands on solid ground. Institutions built for local needs, education that respects native brilliance, and infrastructure that draws from the gifts of the land. Every school, market, and mile of road is woven with threads of local identity, ensuring that progress is sturdy and self-made, not borrowed or imposed from outside. This approach echoes Japan's post-war miracle, where local know-how and pride fueled a rebirth that surprised the world. And this awakening does not stop at Burkina Faso's borders. Across Africa, the Sovereign Development Charter is bringing nations together to share their strengths, to write their own stories of progress. A continent once separated by boundaries and foreign agendas is discovering new power in unity and shared vision. Just as the European Union emerged from the ruins of war to promote collaboration and peace, Africa is forging its own path on its own terms. The world now faces a choice. Will we keep overlooking the ingenuity born from necessity, or will we finally recognize and embrace this homegrown model of growth? For those watching, Burkina Faso's path is a challenge, a call to rethink our assumptions about where dignity, strength, and innovation truly begin. The revolution in Burkina Faso is more than roads. It is a test of courage. Where will you take your stand? Will you side with the doubters, or with those who believe in the possibility of renewal from the ground up? But revolution is never easy. Each step towards self-reliance brings new risks and new enemies. The sabotage attempts, the smear campaigns, the withheld funding, these are not just obstacles, but reminders of what is at stake. Yet, as history shows, the greatest changes are always met with the greatest resistance. The American Revolution was dismissed as a fool's errand. India's independence movement was ridiculed and repressed. In both cases, belief and unity overcame. Under President Ibrahim Traore, waste has become the engine of change. Every tire reborn as pavement, every stretch of road once deemed unreachable is more than infrastructure. It is a statement. It shouts, "We claim our destiny. We will not be defined by what the world discards." Right now, at the very heart of Africa, Burkina Faso is defying the world's old limits. With battered tires, cast-off plastic, and stubborn resolve, this nation is building more than highways. They are building a future with their own hands. No foreign debt, no waiting for permission, just vision, grit, and the fierce belief that dignity is not something to be granted. It is something to seize. But this is about more than rubber and roads. It is about who shapes the story of African progress. For generations, outsiders painted Africa as a continent forever waiting, for aid, for development, for someone else's approval. Today, Burkina Faso stands as undeniable proof. Innovation is not imported. It is homegrown, forged from hardship, and powered by collective will. This is a lesson for every community everywhere. Greatness does not wait for rescue. Yet, this story teeters on a knife's edge. Each time these achievements go unseen, each time we stay silent, we risk surrendering Africa's future to outdated myths and those who profit from them. If we do not speak, the world's old narratives will keep deciding who gets to be a pioneer, a leader, a problem solver. That is why sharing these stories matters. That is why standing up for this new vision matters. Remember how the story of Malala Yousafzai traveled the world, inspiring millions? Or how the tale of the Chilean miners' rescue gave hope to countless people? Stories have power. So, where will you stand? Will you accept the world's tired headlines, or will you help amplify a new truth, written in recycled tires and dreams larger than borders? Will you share these stories, support these movements, and challenge those who say Africa must always follow, never lead? The next chapter of progress belongs to the bold. Will you help write it? The question is open, the opportunity is real, and the world is watching. The revolution, tire by tire, drop by drop, spark by spark, has begun. Where it goes next is up to all of us. Burkina Faso's revolution is not just a local triumph. It is a signal fire, a call to every community, every creator, every listener. Recognize the courage in building something new from what others throw away. Share the story of African innovation, not as an outlier, but as the new standard. Spread the example. Host discussions, create documentaries, support local innovators. Demand that your leaders look south for inspiration, not just north. If you are a student, study these models. If you are a policymaker, open doors for real, reciprocal partnerships.